Good evening, everybody. I will call to order the Marin Water Board meeting of May 21st, 2024. Terry, if we could have roll call, please.
Yes, Director Larry Russell,
Here.
Director Monty Schmidt,
Here.
Director Jed Smith,
Here.
Vice President Matt Sampson,
Here.
and President Ranjiv Kush.
Here. Moving on, do we have a motion to adopt today's meeting agenda?
So moved. Second.
Terry, are there any public comments on the agenda?
Not on the agenda.
Then if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Schmidt,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
Vice President Sampson,
Yes.
President Kush.
Aye.
Thank you.
And now, public comments on items that are not on the agenda.
Yes, there are two. The first is Chuck Ballinger and then Phil Sauter.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chuck Ballinger. I'm a co-founder of the Marin Coalition for Water Solutions. And besides helping you guys get elected this term, we studied the various water options, the portfolio, if you will, for the last 2 years. And I think at this point, the choice is very clear. For one thing, I do favor water conservation. It makes sense, and I even removed my front lawn. But in my opinion, the biggest water waster in Marin is by far the water district itself. It's ironic that we ask residents to tear up their lawns and take 2-minute showers while we allow billions of gallons of excess rainwater flow into the ocean every winter. The last time we expanded our reservoir was 42 years ago. For 100 years before that, we built and expanded reservoirs in accordance with Marin's expanding population. That all stopped in 1982, and that is inexcusable. The previous board did their best to come up with reasons not to expand. They cited potential mercury that exists in all of our reservoirs. They were afraid to confront the dreaded fish and game people. And now they're worried about a few landowners who would lose a bit of land adjacent to the Sulahuli Reservoir, land they don't even use. A recent IJ cartoon illustrated homes underwater if that reservoir was expanded. And that is the can't-do attitude. Historically, the first water board directors had a can-do attitude, not a can't-do attitude. If they hesitated at every roadblock back then, we wouldn't have the reservoir system we have today. Some say reservoir expansion just doesn't pencil out. I'll tell you what doesn't pencil out: desalination. Producing expensive water while we confront winter flooding is beyond ironic. It's insane. Around 177 countries have desal plants, but I couldn't find one that experiences atmospheric rivers in the winter. If they did, they'd figure out a way to store it. Reservoirs, as opposed to desal plants, contain free water provided by nature. They require no energy output, they don't discharge dangerous brine, and they don't need to remain powered up even during a rainstorm. I believe history will look back at our wasting winter water with bewilderment and astonishment. They'll wonder, how come we didn't increase storage proportionate to our increasing population? How come we rely solely on conservation when we allow so much winter water to flow into the sea? And how could we even consider manufacturing expensive water while we waste so much of it by not containing it? I hope this board will disregard the can't-doers and become can-doers in the future. For the history of Marin, it could be your legacy, and I know you can do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. As we end another wet winter and begin the summer drawdown of our reservoirs, I pulled a monthly summary of our per capita water use over the past 7 years. This graph shows our per capita winter use, which is mostly indoor use, dropping from 60 gallons per capita per day in 2016 to 50 in 2023. It's consistent with what our flume users are telling us. But it's the summer water use that's sending the strongest signal. During the first 5 of these 7 years, summer water use was around 120 gallons per capita per day, twice as high as our winter use. And as there were 2 very dry years during that period, we began to seriously conserve. And for the past 2 years, our summer water use declined to 95 and then to 85 gallons per capita per day. Instead of double our winter use, we've recently seen 2 summers that were only 60 to 70% above winter water use. It appears we saved about 35 gallons per day over the past 2 summers by using less outdoor water. Average that out over the course of a year, and it's a savings of 20 gallons per capita per day. And that's what this graph from the district's website shows too. 20 gallons per day is an interesting number. First, it's equal to 4 million gallons a day, which is the total savings that staff's projecting by 2045, and which some of us hope to see by 2030. It's also an annual savings of 4,000 acre feet. That's just by doing what we've already done for the past 3 years. If we could hold those savings and increase them just a small amount, I don't think we'd need 20,000 acre feet of new supply. Expanding water supply through conservation of potable water is a win for all customers. It would save eye-popping capital costs. It would keep us from flooding parts of West Marin. It would keep us from adding major new infrastructure to an already complex system. And it would let us keep our own pristine water supply, free from PFAS and less dependent on others. Of course, continuing what we've done for the last 3 years requires understanding what we've done for the last 3 years. It's not all 60,000 customers who each reduced their summer water use by 35%. Many of us don't use summer water at all, and most of us use modest amounts. So who were the users who saved 4 million gallons a day? What were their savings? Where do they live? What motivated them? How can we keep them motivated next year? Can we motivate their neighbors? The district is sitting on enormous amounts of usable data. We need to turn it into what Director Schmidt calls decision-making data. Your software vendors could offer advice. I personally have been willing to help analyze it, and so are others. We just need permission to start. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Thank you for the comments. And we'll now move to directors and general managers announcements.
Can I make just an item not on the agenda comment?
How does that work, Molly?
I mean, typically it would be a board member announcement. So you could
Okay.
do it under board member announcements, or if it's a request for a future item, we do hold that we have an item at the end of the meeting for those.
You want to start?
Actually, it does flow into one of my announcements, so that works. On May 2nd, we had a Sonoma Marin water coordination meeting with representatives from Sonoma Water, North Marin, and Marin, as well as an elected official from each, Rabbit and Radoni and myself. And it was a very thoughtful conversation about how we might want to look at our regional approach to working together. And in that, there was some discussion about the contract that we're currently negotiating with them to renew our contract with Sonoma Water, and potentially looking at the master contract that is not due to be looked at for another 21 years. And so I'd love to, I'm reporting out on that meeting, and I would love to agendize maybe some high level conversation with the board, at least to give a sense of where we are with those conversations and maybe get some board feedback on next steps. I can do other report outs if you want. I was also at the One Tam 10th anniversary event on top of Mount Tam on May 9th, which was an absolutely spectacular, lovely event. Coordination of our local partners and federal partners. It was a terrific turnout. Proud to be associated with that, and I believe that One Tam in essence was founded in this room. So phenomenal work, great coordination. Sean, I think you were there, and others, and so proud to be a part of that. Later that evening, doubling up, I was also able to go to a Point Blue annual event, and they are terrific partners of ours. We are working with them on many levels in terms of habitat, bird species, and other local watershed efforts that we'll be talking about shortly. But could not be more proud to be working with them. Those are my 3 report outs.
Thanks, Jed. Jed, when we come back to the future meetings item, can we bring up things that you want to see on future meetings at that point and then, get a second? So, yeah, that's just a process that I think I learned the hard way. That's how we're trying to do it. So during future meetings. Monty,
I have nothing to add tonight.
Matt?
Thank you. Piggybacking on Director Smith's here, I also was able to attend the One TAM event. And Sean, it was great to see you up there with Carl and Suzanne and the rest of the district staff that attended. And a big takeaway for me was the integration of the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria, being able to meet their folks and their staff and what they're doing and how they're being incorporated into the decision-making process, and a seat at the table on the One TAM board is important. And I would love to support that continued engagement with that group. It was really good to see them and meet them. So thank you for setting that up. The following day, I was able to speak with the Marin Realtors at their annual meeting for government presentations, and had a lengthy talk about what we're doing on the water supply front, as well as some wildfire preparation in the district. So it's good to update that group. They're very interested in what we're doing. They want to remain engaged and up to date on how the water district's progressing on both of those items. So continue to engage with them. Last week on the 16th, I was able to attend the California Water Association's Spring Policy Conference up in Sacramento. It was a 2-day event. I stayed for day one. And one of the takeaways from that in the afternoon, there was a conservation water panel that had quite a few people from up and down the state, including the chair of the California Water Resources Control Board. It was really interesting how they talked about the challenges of implementing the conservation as a way of life mandate for water savings and the different districts and how they're dealing with it. But everybody seemed, the common thread on all of it was that we should all be pressing hard, continuing to move forward on conservation efforts and doing everything we can to conserve. But everyone was very clear that that's not going to get us out of this position we're in right now. We need to continue to invest in infrastructure, and we need to do so in a way we haven't done in a long time, so that we are ready for the next drought with the conservation kind of support for that. So it was interesting. Unfortunately, the next day I wasn't able to attend the Tomales Bay meeting, this quarterly meeting, but I hope to meet up with them in their June. They're having a June meeting out at Hog Island, which should be pretty interesting. And that's the end of the report.
Thank you, Matt. Larry?
Yes, a couple of meetings have occurred. One was the WAC meeting on the 7th of, I think it was the 7th of May. And they discussed the issues involved with the Potter Valley, Eel River conversion. They reviewed their biological opinion status document, which is critical to the release of water from the reservoirs. And they reviewed the overall water efficiency or water conservation of the partners in Sonoma. There was a DOC meeting, District Operations Committee meeting on the 17th. And at that meeting, there was a discussion of our asphalt concrete paving issues. There's a contract coming forward, which will be for 3 years with a possible extension of 2 years, to attempt to address reducing the costs of our repaving during repairs. It's a challenging task. The costs have increased substantially, more than the normal cost of living. I think the number was something like 155% over the period of time of the last contract. It's an area that we're working diligently on. The district is working diligently on to attempt to reduce the costs by meeting with relative partners like cities and the county to try and get a handle on what actually needs to be done in a repair, so that it isn't just a matter of us coming back and doing full repaving curb to curb every time we want to cut into the asphalt. Then there was a review of a project coming, which is the second half of the Tiburon pipeline. That's along Paradise Drive. The first one was done about a year or two ago and went quite well. And this is the other half. So this starts about in the middle of Paradise and goes on into town. It's a challenging project to say the least. It's old pipeline and difficult because in that area, Paradise only 2 lanes. So we have to work diligently on traffic control. Then there were a couple of contracts for cathodic protection, modifications and installation. And the last subject item was a change in the district's way of accessing software, which is to sign up with Microsoft 365 and provide a cloud-based service that will be fed into the users of the district, the employees, and will allow us to step into the 21st century. We've been sort of in a bit of a ragtag situation with respect to individual machines having their own software in the server. So this will put everybody on the same page and hopefully will work just great. So that's the news I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Larry. Great update. I should have clarified that we're moving committee reports now to a separate agenda item, but I'll try to do better with that going forward. So we have our general manager's announcement next. Just one question on that, on your GM report, Ben. Are the incidents and events and citations that are shown, are those year to date or is it on a monthly basis?
Sean, you may know offhand. I can look at it. Do you want to respond?
Can't see the red. The chart, the table is monthly. And so you'll see monthly updates every month there. And then Rangers do keep like an annual tally as well.
Okay, all right. They're big numbers in some cases, so I wasn't sure. Any other general managers items?
Not this evening.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now we have agenda item number 5, which is our board committee reports. Larry, thanks again for already speaking to the operations committee meeting last Friday. I'll summarize our communications and water efficiency committee meeting last Wednesday, May 15th. Staff provided an update on proposed changes to the water efficiency incentive programs and water efficiency policies. The committee referred this item to the board to be considered for approval, and during tonight's meeting, we'll address the incentives program. Staff also shared news that the district has been awarded grant funding to support its water energy incentives through a grant application submitted by Sonoma Water. The award covers rebates issued since April 2022, and the remaining funds will be used for turf rebates and smart irrigation controllers. The committee referred this item to the board to be considered for approval at a future meeting. Staff also provided an update on the performance of recent water efficiency outreach activities and provided an update on upcoming summer water plans. The public may access and view the video recording of the May 15th committee meeting from the district's website. And I think that's it for committee meetings. So we'll move on to our consent calendar, which is long today. It includes 8 items. I'm going to try to go through them really quickly. Number 1, approve minutes from our 3 previous board meetings. Number 2, approve the general manager's report for April 2024 in our packet today. Number 3, adopt our ongoing resolution for emergency contracting for West Peak power pole removal. Number 4, approve updates to our board travel reimbursement and compensation policies. Number 5, approve and authorize the GM to finalize and execute an easement agreement with the County of Marin for widening the Point Reyes Petaluma Road. Number 6, authorize the GM to execute agreements for purchasing water treatment chemicals in an amount not to exceed $2,326,866. Number 7, approve the proposed changes to the district water efficiency incentives, which are to sunset the high efficiency toilet and clothes washer rebates and launch a new custom rebate that incentivizes non-residential customers to save water, which that's to be developed. And finally, number 8, authorize the GM to finalize and execute a licensing solution provider agreement with Dell Marketing to provide Microsoft 365 services in an amount not to exceed $434,351 over 3 years. Phew. Okay. Any public comments on items in our consent calendar?
Yes, we have one, Mr. Phil Sauter.
Excuse me. I think I may have mentioned that I'd spent about 25 years in the computer services business. And one thing I know is that a $500,000 enterprise agreement that you're about to approve is a big score. It's not chump change. And at the time that you are deciding to award that contract, it's always a good time to ask the vendor if there are any specific things that he or she can help with. And specifically, if I were asking, I'd say, listen, we've got 60,000 users and we're trying to pull out the ones where we could get the biggest buck for conservation. And, here's our seasonality and so on. Could you get one of your savviest enterprise consultants to come and help us tease that data out? Take advantage of the expertise that your vendors have in addition to negotiating a good price and so on. See if you can get a little extra lagniappe, I think they call it in New Orleans, and get some help in understanding some of your big data problems. That's one I can think of. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no further speakers.
Thank you, Phil, for the insight. Okay, then do we have a motion to approve our consent calendar?
Yep, so moved.
Second.
Carrie, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Schmidt,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
Vice President Sampson,
Yes.
President Kush.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, then moving to our regular agenda. Item 9A is the Lagunitas Creek Habitat Enhancement.
Yeah, good evening, Director Sean Horn, Director of Watershed Resources, and I'm joined with
Jonathan Kaler, Fisheries Program Manager.
we've got the Lagunitas Creek Restoration Project for you this evening to review. And there's three recommendations as part of this item. We're asking the board to review and approve the construction contract for the Lagunitas Creek project and their associated resolution, and then also approve an ESA contract amendment and a CDFW grant resolution. And in the presentation that we've prepared for you, we'll walk through all the pieces of the recommendations for you this evening. All right, so the district started this project in 2021 with a grant from CDFW to do a 30% design for Lagunitas Creek. We worked with the TAC and our fisheries staff and ESA, developed 30% designs. And then fortunately, we received a second grant from CDFW to support us advancing 100% designs for phase 1 of the project. So we've done that since that time, and we're now ready to go to construction. And one update that we want to provide this evening as part of the construction is just the phasing and how we've had to break this out. We were always going to do phase 1 as a 2-year construction contract. We have a USBR grant for phase 1B, and the USBR did not finish their NEPA compliance for that funding in time for us to include that in this construction package. So we've separated it, and it doesn't functionally delay the project or mean anything different than Jonathan and I will be back here next year at the same time doing another construction contract for phase 1B. That's really the only fundamental change. But we are advancing these with grant funding that the districts received to complete the entire restoration process. So on April 9th, the district with the engineering department's construction management group support put together a bid package and bid that publicly. On May 7th, we opened 4 of those bids. During that period in term, we had a mandatory bid walk, and we had about 10 contractors come out to the site and walk, and then we got 4 bids. Those bids ranged in amount from 1.9 million to 2.4 million for a construction implementation. In addition to the construction work, we are amending the ESA contract, and a portion of that contract includes $1.48 million to support our engineering services for design to ensure that we are constructing it as designed. Also to support the environmental compliance to move the project forward in alignment with our permits, and then construction management services as well. And that is
Sorry, Sean, the slides are not.
Oh, we didn't advance, but the breakdown is there. Yeah, thanks. So the professional services, just a clarifying point there, that will spanned the phase 1A and B sites. So it's going to comprehensively support us for the next 2 years. In addition to that, we estimated district labor and contingency for the project. And like we mentioned, all of the implementation and professional services is grant funded for this phase of work. And so with that, I'm going to hand it to Jonathan to talk through the approach for the restoration project and what we hope to achieve.
Sean, sorry, if you could go back, please. Just looking quickly, it looks like the total budget might be missing, might have a typo in that. There's 800 in the contract award that doesn't show up in the total.
So the design for phase 2 is in the ESA contract that's not included in this breakdown for phase 1 and 2, A and B. So that might be the difference.
All right, yeah, maybe just confirm that, because I'm just looking if we add up the numbers from contract award, contingency fees, and labor to get the total.
Okay, we'll look at that.
Yeah.
So going on, we'll walk through the design approach and what we hope to achieve with the work.
Yeah, so evening directors, good to be with you again. Fundamentally, the design hasn't changed since the last update we provided to the Watershed Committee back in December. And I think that's a good thing, shows that we're sort of following the right approach. As you all know, this has been a very collaborative process with the Lagunitas TAC, with the agency staff, and of course, our partners at State Parks, who've been really essential in this process. We're doing the work on their property. Really appreciate the collaboration there. And it's been a long process, a long iterative process where we've taken each design level to the Lagunitas TAC, received a lot of feedback, and our design consultant ESA has really done, I would say, an exceptional job of listening to that information, adjusting, making tweaks as needed. And I think the product we're ending up with now is really just it's outstanding. So really looking forward to getting this thing, on the ground. Excuse me. The overarching goal of the project, of course, is to increase habitat complexity and quality for coho salmon endangered, California freshwater shrimp also endangered, and steelhead trout threatened. And Lagunitas Creek, as you know, is an exceptional stream for all three of these species, which are regionally declining, but seem to be experiencing somewhat of a stronghold in Lagunitas Creek. So this type of project, I think, has, not just district significance, but also regional significance. And the idea is to take these sections of creek, you can see in the lower left picture there, where the creek is still not quite functioning to its full capacity. So what we would call a glide habitat, it's relatively shallow, homogeneous, doesn't offer a whole lot of either spawning or rearing habitat for fish. And strategically placing logs, boulders, gravel, kind of the three main ingredients for stream restoration, in such a way that we create spawning habitat, so brand new spawning areas for these fish, and then immediately adjacent to that spawning habitat, really high quality pools with cover where they can hide, where they can feed. And it's that close geographic proximity that really, I think, makes this project outstanding. You can see in the pictures, the district, of course, has a long history of these kinds of projects, many of which have been successful. And so we're hoping to build on those projects and really just scale them up to another level, something the district really hasn't tried before. So this is, I think, somewhat groundbreaking in that way. So I'll also just quickly mention, there have been discussions at previous board meetings, questions about monitoring. There's also quite a robust monitoring component here. So not only the monitoring that we need to conduct in partnership with ESA, our consultant, to make sure we're complying with our permits, but also just that we want to learn from this project, make sure it informs future iterations, since we're going to continue this for multiple years, and then also inform kind of the larger restoration community on what works, what is cost effective, what's not cost effective, those sorts of things. So there's a whole list. At the most recent TAC meeting, we presented a list of items, got sort of approval or consensus on those metrics, and we'll be kind of detailing those out in the coming months and beginning that kind of pre-project monitoring. So tonight we have three recommendations. We're recommending award to Hanford ARC of the Phase 1 implementation contract. As Sean mentioned, the ESA contract has two components to it. One is to support Phase 1A implementation. So that's they're actually providing construction management, compliance support in terms of what we've been permitted to do. They're overseeing the technical aspects of the implementation. This is pretty specialized work. You want to make sure the logs are configured just such that, you know, we're actually achieving the goals. And then also longer term performance monitoring to see that the structures stay in place, that they stay oriented the way that they were intended and actually serve the function that they were originally designed to serve. And then that last piece you see, or actually the second phase of ESA's contract is to then take the same approach and apply it downstream. We have 5 more sites sort of in the hopper downstream at the 30% design, take those to the 100% design and complete permitting for them. So that will be also grant funded, not grunt funded, grant funded, probably both.
Yeah.
And yeah, going forward, we're going to continue this process.
So with that, we'll take any questions you might have. Going back to the budget piece, the engineer's estimate shouldn't be included in the total, and then it'll add up to the correct total amount for the project. We are super fortunate that these projects are going forward with grant funding from CDFW's watershed program, CDFW's fisheries restoration program, and the USBR's environmental resource and aquatic resource program. So super fortunate the district got those funds, and it's going to help us complete this phase of work over the next 2 seasons. We have a very tight construction window, which we didn't mention, and that is because of northern spotted owls that nest in that section of the creek. So we'll be monitoring those with support from Point Blue, national parks, and state parks as well. So with that, we'll take any questions you might have.
Did you also mention DWR? Sorry.
Oh, yeah,
we
and
have one other
DWR.
grant. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, thanks, Sean. Thanks, Jonathan. We'll open it up for board discussion, questions, comments. Monty, do you want to kick us off?
Fantastic project. I love this stuff. Yeah, I love that I really appreciate that we're going to be focusing on monitoring. It'd be really, these kinds of things, they're designed to be used by fish. And so it'll be really great to see what our monitoring shows in terms of, spawning usage, maybe in this coming up next winter. Too early to hope for, maybe, but and then rearing habitat, and obviously, and how to separate out. Maybe this is just creating better habitat, so it's pulling fish from other places. But how can we quantify the additional benefit? And maybe that I know that the answer to that is that it's very hard to do that. But maybe you could speak to that for the rest of the board members in public, just about the challenges of monitoring fish usage because of all the challenges with population changes.
Yeah, definitely. That was going to be my response. It's difficult. It's definitely difficult. The good news is we have an excellent data set. We have a data set that spans a lot of the creek. So we very much could compare, spawning densities downstream where this treatment hasn't happened to spawning densities in the areas where we have treated and look at that. Again, difficult to draw causation versus correlation, but I think we're in good shape to do that. Those kinds of comparisons, and that is something that we're expecting to do.
And how are we keeping the logs in place?
Each log is individually ballasted with boulders that have been engineered basically to keep them in place. So the structures, as you see them, look like a series of sort of interlocking logs, but each one of them individually is anchored with heavy boulders that are pinned with threaded rod to basically keep them where we want them.
Great. Exciting work.
Yeah.
Matt.
Yep. Jonathan, Sean, thank you for the report. And to echo what Monty said, this stuff is really interesting, not to mention the ecological benefit, but it's such a great educational tool when we're explaining what's going on. And every time I'm out there, I try to point out the metal rod and show people that's not part of the tree. Going back to the cost piece, do we have skin in this game too? Are we putting in district resources out of all those costs?
So the district has an incredible amount of labor into the project overall. And our biological monitoring that supports it post-project and in front of the project also goes into it as a type of match. So that's how I think about the district's skin in the game, if you will. We don't track it as closely in terms of as we do with our grants, but
Yep.
yeah, our fisheries staff are out there, will be out there on a daily basis when we're doing the construction. And one thing to note is that as part of one of our CDFW grants, we also got funded a natural resource technician position that'll be acting as a biological monitoring for the construction implementation phase. And so that is a huge lift to the district staffing as well.
Great. And I think just another really good example when we can pair up district efforts and resources with federal funds, how fast we do this, because you guys are moving at such a fast pace on this. It's really exciting to see how quickly this project's progressing. So great job. Just one question. How's it holding up with the big winter storms the past 2 years, the work that's been done? Any issues at all?
We haven't done any on the ground actual work yet. So nothing yet.
But some of the sites are in.
Oh, the past. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, those have functioned well. So for the most part, they're mostly in place. A lot of them have sort of turned in such a way that they're not quite as functional as we would have hoped. But that's one thing that we've built into this future design is the ability to sort of reorient them. And that's one benefit of having each log individually ballasted is that you can go back and actually adjust them. So that is something that long term we could theoretically fix, if you will.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you very much. That's it.
Great. Jed?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and nothing but support and pride for the work that you guys have been doing for quite some time. My question is related to this in the sense that I'm really curious about, Jonathan, your work and what you're doing, and you know, it's rooted in this to help understand kind of where you're coming from. But I've been trying for since I got on the board to meet as many people in the staff as possible. And I think I've been I feel like a little bit held back because we want all the board directors to meet people equally. And so it's been a little bit hard for me to learn. And I really want to learn about what you're doing and who works for you, how many people are on your team, how long have you been here? And just get a better sense of how much of this is your effort and what else you're involved in. And, you know, we're asked to make decisions around this and water efficiency and others that we're not experts in, and you are. So the more personally I learn this way, I learn from talking with people and understanding what they're doing. So if the way to learn from individuals deeper in the organization besides the leadership team is to do it publicly, I'd love to just hear more about your personal efforts in here and who's on your team and how it's gone.
Sounds good. Yeah, I fully agree. It's very much a team effort. So it's not at all me. It's definitely a group of us working on this work. So, and Sean certainly right at the helm.
So is this, how much of your effort is this project, and who else is working on this with you and your team?
Certainly Sean, you know, Eric Etlinger, our aquatic ecologist. We have seasonal watershed stewards program staff who do a lot of our monitoring. That's a great program through the CCC/AmeriCorps. We've recently hired natural resources technician Sterling Mayhews, who we were hoping could come tonight, but maybe in a future meeting you can get to meet him. We collaborate a lot. So that's the other thing, is there are a lot of folks working in the fish world in Marin. So, you know, Marin Water is a good player with a number of other supporting folks. You know, the state park, the National Park Service, Spawn does a lot of good monitoring. CDFW has been an excellent partner. So it's definitely a team effort.
And I've heard nothing but great responses from, is this project like 10% of your time or 100% or 50%?
It's been 110% of my time.
This is
but
it.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a large chunk of it.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, we'll be, you know, following on Jed's comments, you know, having other staff occasionally, Sean, come in and join these presentations would be great. Larry, any comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a few. I'm glad to hear, Jonathan, that you guys have a design you believe is going to work, and I surely wish that proves to be the case. I've asked Sean this question before, and I believe he told me that you guys have got your arms around the problems that occurred like 8 years ago with those structures that were built. We had a collapse of a wall or something to that effect, as I recall. The thing I caution you, having done a lot of work in the environment myself, is Mother Nature bats last. And, you know, you do your best from an engineering standpoint, and nature has a way of testing those activities. So, you know, our support is there, and hopefully we've got a plan. I like that interlocking boulders and things. I was kind of thinking about it, that it's more or less what nature had done over the millions of years that Lagunitas Creek has been flowing, and that, you know, we then came in as a organized society and removed those impediments to flow. As a civil engineer, I know there's been a lot of good change of thinking from trying to remove the water as fast as possible to trying to remove it effectively. And I think this is a good step in that direction. Like I say, nature worked hard to do all of that and had the creek in, I think, in pretty good shape. And then we came in and as a society and removed those materials because we felt they impeded flow. So let's hope that you know, we've got our arms around this, and like I say, I think your design sounds exciting, and looking forward to seeing them in real life. Thanks.
Can I maybe add on to that? Speaking to end on Larry's point there, it'd be great to see these in real life, and maybe we could schedule a board meeting to actually come when you're 2/3 of the way through construction or something like that. So there's some finished parts of the project to look at and other things. I know that I'd make time for that. I bet others. So we could try to make that happen. That would be great.
It's a great idea, Monty.
Yes, if we do get that, Jonathan, I really want to see the gravel monitoring sensors. That was quite impressive to read about. Okay, let's open it up for public comments.
There are none.
All right, then. So we do have 3 items for approval. I'm going to see if we can do this with one motion or not.
If there are no objections from any members of the board, you're free to make a motion to move all 3 items collectively.
Okay, let me just run through them, make sure we're all on the same page here. We have up for approval are a resolution awarding contract number 2022 for the Lagunitas Creek Coho Habitat Enhancement Project to Hanford Applied Restoration and Conservation for Phase 1A. Second is a contract amendment with ESA for design of Phase 2 and construction support services for phases 1A and 1B. And then number 3 is the California Department of Fish and Wildlife grant resolution to accept funds for design of Phase 2. If there are no questions, then do we have a motion to approve all 3?
Yep, so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Could we have a vote, please, Karen?
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Schmidt,
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
Vice President Sampson,
Yes.
President Kush.
Aye. Okay, thanks again, Sean, Jonathan. And we'll move to item 9B, which is the legislative update.
Sean Horn, Director of Watershed Resources. We're going to give the legislative update. This is something that we're bringing back. We reviewed it with you a couple months ago. You know, I don't know that there's a perfect time to make positions on any of these. We see amendment processes happen as the calendar year goes on. And so what we did in the staff report and in the presentation this evening is provide a table that kind of reminds us what we've looked at before, what positions the board adopted, and what actions we took after the fact. And that's just kind of, I think, a process that we're trying to set up so that you all can kind of keep tabs on where we are with the conversations around these items. So at the last update, we discussed the wildfire safety bill and provided a letter of support to Bill Dodd on that item. And then we also discussed the beaver restoration and discussed taking a position of watch. And we've seen some changes to that language, and we can kind of speculate that there will continue to be changes around that bill as it continues. So we're not providing a detailed update tonight, but we are continuing to recommend a position of watch for that item. And then we have two other bills that I'm going to go into more detail on subsequent slides. The first one would be very long title, but the climate bond. And it was introduced in an attempt to bring some additional resources to some of the programs that have been funding the district and that have been funding some of our Logganese Creek restoration work as well, really with the focus on water resources, droughts, climate change impacts, and nature-based solutions throughout California, and providing some additional funding to the grant programs that benefit the public agencies and Californians. So the 2024 climate bond will increase potential funding for future grant programs. That's really critical as we're starting to see a deficit in the state budget and some of the grant programs pulling back on future awards. So that's something to consider as we talk about this one. There's a lot of support for this and not a lot of opposition at this time. It is still being discussed though, and it is very fluid as the state budget's being discussed as well. So at this point, we're here to have a discussion with you all, but staff is recommending that we consider signing on to a position of support with Aqua and our other partners through Together Bay Area. And I guess one of the elements to introduce this whole item would be that we, the district, participate in Aqua's legislative committee as well as Together Bay Area's committee, and have discussions periodically as we track and monitor these various legislative items. And so this is one that we'd love to hear from the board on, and just consider what you'd like the district to be thinking about and the position you'd like to take.
Do you prefer we break them up like that?
I think
Sean?
that maybe is the cleanest if
Yes.
it works for
Okay.
you.
Sure. Yeah, let's open it up for discussion then. Jed, do you want to start?
Well, I think my understanding is that SB 867 is still pretty heavily negotiated at this point. It's not finalized and determined. At high level, I'm supportive. I think Alan is a very thoughtful legislator and has, aligned at least with my personal beliefs, but this doesn't seem like this is totally done yet. So I'm not sure why this is more of a support than some of the other ones. I believe there's a lot to go here.
From what I understand, it's the same thing. The Assembly Committee and the Senate Committee are still going back and forth. There's still a little bit of unknowns right now. And so jumping into it, I mean, I definitely same opinion at high level support. I think this will get passed. I just like to see the final, or at least a little bit more mature product before slapping a support on it.
Anyone else? Larry, comments?
No, I'm cool.
Any more color on why you think now's the right time versus, or is what we're saying your understanding as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we understand that there's ongoing negotiations and discussions around what the final bill will be, and it could be amended in different ways. We've been in conversation with Aqua and Together Bay Area, and there's an interest from both those organizations to see agencies take positions, and they are recommending support positions. And that was why this one came at this time, was because of some of the letters that are going out from those coalitions.
I think there's some pretty heavy conversations going on.
Is there any downside to offering support before it's fully baked?
What's the next level down from support?
So we can take a position of watch.
Could be watch. One thing that came to my mind was on something like this is probably going to churn for a while, and the sausage making goes on a bit. So when would we, but we could give it a shot, see in a couple of weeks, I guess, and bring it back. From kind of, I guess, staff's view, this is such a big initiative for Aqua and such a big initiative for Together Bay Area. And at the end of the day, it's more available funds for a range of our projects. So however it changes, it's hard to imagine we wouldn't want to support it, but this is certainly a policy decision on what we do and the timing. So,
well, I guess if it's 6.7 billion or 8.7 billion, it would actually have a really material impact on us.
I think it's closer to 15 in the total.
But we'd support it regardless, I guess, at the end of the day, even if it was less than we had hoped for.
Yeah, and Sean, you made a point which we've heard quite a bit, which is that grant funding through DWR is going to be diminishing due to all the budget challenges. So having some option for replacing that seems really important.
think one of the challenges is always just when a bill's not done and if it's moving a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people who see the bigger need in California to have another bond that provides, I mean, look at the list. I mean, it's quite extensive, all the different, natural resource and, management issues that are covered here. It's quite remarkable. And we've gotten into this pattern in California that we fund a lot of our work through bonds. And so we become very dependent on these. I think that there is a lot of movement still. And is there going to be something in the bill that makes any board member uncomfortable? I think it's hard, once you sign on with support, it's very hard to pull it back. So I think, it's worth, is there a downside to watching? And everybody likes to build support early on. But once you've offered support, it's pretty hard to take it back. And so I think that's just a consideration for the board to think about.
I think it's a good one, Monty, but on the flip side, if, it doesn't end up materializing and we're left in that position, well, if we had put our shoulders behind it, it might have moved forward and opened up options for us. I don't know that any one district has any, relevance in that. But nevertheless, I think the upside of this moving forward is pretty compelling.
I mean, I think
I agree with you, Ranjiv. I don't see much downside here. It looks like a pretty good project or concept. And I just don't see the risk of supporting it. I think we've got good partners in Aqua and those cats. And, it's time, I think it's time for us to get on board.
I do think, in my regular work, I read these things. And I don't know if anybody here has read the whole thing, but this is like a contract in a way. Like when we sign on, when you're offering support, it's good to have read what's in it. We have good folks who are distilling it down for us, and I appreciate that. But much like we review contracts and other things, we should read them. So I would encourage the board to be informed before signing on to things, just as a matter of due course.
Yeah, but realistically, look at the things I just signed today. I'm sitting in front of Terry. I think we do rely on our groups like Aqua staff to vet a lot of different things for us. So if staff is feeling like this is a positive position to take, a positive move to make, and groups like Aqua are also on board, then it does give me some confidence.
For my conversations with folks in the room negotiating this, it's not really ready for my support right now.
Yeah, I'll follow up. I think that I agree. I think Sean, the work you're doing to bring this to us, we understand it is valuable, and I definitely think this will get to the right place. But speaking with the folks that are working on it right now, they're actually recommending let's hold off for a little bit till it becomes more further baked. So I'm going to be behind Jed on this one, and I'm not ready to move to support. I'll be watching.
So I don't think we're going to have a majority if we decide to put this up for vote. So with that, I'll suggest we table it.
That sounds good. The next one we've got.
Before we go on from that, we could watch it. I think that's what we're doing already. So
Would that be helpful?
if that's,
Okay.
and I'd suggest that when it comes back, we actually get a presentation about what's in it. Because this is a lot of money. And it would be really good for us to just, if people ask us why did we support it, you'll be able to point to the parts that are really relevant to us. So a presentation that maybe articulates a little bit more why the district has an interest in it. And it's not just the water, the water supply stuff, but there's a lot of things in here for for natural resource management, river restoration, and other things. So there's a lot of good stuff in here. I don't mean to cast a negative pall upon this in any way.
I'll second the motion to watch, and I'll second the motion to bring some experts in to learn more.
So do we take a vote on that then, a decision to go to watch?
I think it's fair if there's a motion on the table, and
Okay.
vote on that.
Okay, and we have a second, I guess. All right, thanks. And then Terry, we'll have a vote, please.
Sorry. Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Schmidt.
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
Vice President Sampson.
Yes.
President Kush.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Sean, then moving on to the next one.
So the next item is AB 2257, introduced by Wilson, relating to the local government property-related water and sewer fees and assessments and the process for this. The 218 process has become somewhat cumbersome for public agencies and districts like ours. This would have created an administrative process that would require people that might litigate against a rate increase to bring it through an administrative process and make their concerns voiced at a public meeting like this and give the district an opportunity to respond to that. It does have some requirements on districts like ours to post things 45 days in advance to progress that process forward. So as long as the district complies with the new processes that are set up, then it would require that the litigating party exhaust all their administrative processes first before doing a blind lawsuit. And I'm sure Molly can elaborate more if you have questions on this particular item. We are in alignment with Aqua, recommending at this point a position of support and to sign on to their letter of support for this item as well.
If I can add, this has moved out of the assembly at this point. So
Okay, and I know that we've also discussed this in a previous meeting. So coming back to this, board comments, questions?
No, I'm in support of the staff recommendation.
Monty?
I'm good.
Larry?
I'm good too.
Okay, then do we have a motion to adopt a position of support for AB 2257?
So moved.
Second.
A vote, please, Terry?
Director Russell,
Aye.
Director Schmidt.
Aye.
Director Smith,
Aye.
Vice President Sampson.
Yes.
President Kush.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good. And then just in summary, we're continuing to pursue grant opportunities that come before the district. We'll continue to watch these items as they move through the legislative process and committees. And then we'll be tracking any federal and state funding opportunities that the district might benefit, and really try to bring back more items like this for discussion, right? The timeline really is until August. So if there's items to bring back like the climate bond, we can do that in the next month or so for further discussion. And that's all we have. So thank you very much.
Can I just I know we've been bringing up the beaver legislation. I know we've been watching that. Can we, when we meet next on legislative issues, can we get a deeper briefing on that so that we can know whether we're getting closer to where we're making our own decision whether to support or keep watching? Just
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, Terry, I forgot to check on public comments on this item.
There are none.
I'm saved. Although I'm sure I would have been told. Thank you, Sean. We'll move to our next item, which is future board committee meetings and upcoming agenda items and items that board members would like to propose for future meetings.
Would you like me to start with the meetings?
There's a lot of them, right? So
Oh,
maybe,
there's a few, but then if you want us to start with your items,
Yeah,
items, we can.
so Jed, I know you brought up.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea for us to have a high level presentation from the staff on our contract negotiations with Sonoma and at a future meeting, hopefully in the next couple of months.
Great. I think that's good for awareness. I second that. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, I'd like as part of our look at Lagunitas Creek and as part of our water supply portfolio, we're looking at Phoenix Lake, looking at moving water and transferring it, and the impacts that that I think we've started to see some letters of concern about the impacts that it could have on Ross Creek and on fisheries restoration issues related to Ross Creek. There's going to be Corte Madera Creek's getting a fish passage project. There were historically coho salmon in Ross Creek. And I think it would be really helpful for us to be able to understand the issues related to that as a water supply project, because I think that they'll come up as, you know, when there's a lot of local interest in restoring Ross Creek and the fisheries, that we ought to understand if that's going to have an impact on water supply. So
Yeah, if I can give a quick update on that. The district has prepared a draft mitigated negative declaration for the Phoenix Bontempe transfer project. And we took a pause to do a little deeper dive into some of those very issues, look more closely at making sure that we're, you know, addressing the concerns that were raised. And we have had some movement and discussion and progress, and we plan on, we believe that we'll be able to bring that to the board at a public hearing the end of June. So I think it's the June 18th meeting, if I'm not mistaken. So that will be an opportunity for a presentation and discussion on those very issues related to Phoenix Bontempe.
okay, great, thank you.
Okay, then Terry, I think we can go to the regular upcoming meetings.
Sure. So this Thursday is the Finance and Administration Committee meeting. One of the key items discussed will be the water efficiency financial analysis. Next week is the special board meeting.
Before you leave that, Terry, the sheet in the agenda packet says 5 p.m., but I think the meeting's at 9:30.
Oh, you're right. That is correct. That is a typo. Pardon me. You're correct. Thank you for the correction. 9 a.m. Yes, do not come in the evening. Or 9:30. Yes, 9:30.
9:30, right? 9:30.
Thank you. Yes, because I don't want to be there at 5. Okay, so next week is the closed session, 6 p.m., please. Then the next regular board meeting is June 4th at 6:30 p.m. And that will be the quarterly CIP update will be one of the key items discussed. June 18th, Tuesday, 6:30. One of the key items is the strategic annual work plan, second quarter, and that's our at the regular board meeting. So upcoming external meetings, June 7th, there are 2 meetings. The one is the Lagunitas Creek TAC meeting. I believe it will be held here. And the other one that same day is the North Bay Watershed Association Conference. From June 10th through June 13th is the American Water Works Association Annual Conference. And then also on June 12th is the Tamales Bay Foundation monthly meeting.
Great. Busy June. Thank you. Thanks, Terry. Thanks, everybody. And with that, the Marin Water Board of Directors meeting of May 21st, 2024 is adjourned.